The Return of the Twelves by Pauline Clarke. Chapter 17. War and Peace. Max could hardly wait to tell Jane the clue of the skate, but she was down before him having breakfast, and Mr. Morley was reading things from the paper again. "Drat this reporter," he said. "Here's a headline: Lost, stolen, strayed. Strange disappearance of wooden soldiers. I told him to keep it out of the paper." "Yes, but Dad, you have to be nice to them," explained Philip. "Well, they do it to annoy. You were beastly to him. What does it say?" "What has happened to the set of old soldiers, possibly to be identified as those belonging to the Brontes, found in the attic of a farmhouse recently? They have disappeared, dramatically, overnight. An American professor recently offered in the columns of this paper £5,000 for the Bronte soldiers." "The implication is obvious, isn't it?" Mr. Morley said, frowning. "Everyone will think they're stolen?" Jane asked. "And there are two more letters, one saying that there will always be wars while human nature is what it is, and why shouldn't boys play with soldiers? Boys will be boys, he says, and girls will join them in such military games, whether they are Bramwell Bronte and his sisters, or the children who buy lead or bright plastic soldiers today. Battle, struggle, and adventure against enemies are part of the pattern of living, it seems, and much as we all now hate war, there looks as if they will go on being. Until men are perfect in humanity, they will fight." This seemed a solemn letter, and there was a pause. "Mummy, do you think people ever will be in perfect harmony? Mummy, do you think people ever will be perfect in humanity, or whatever he said?" asked Jane. Well, do you think people could have been created with anything less to aim at?" she replied. "If we take it that God created them." "No, but will it be here on earth?" Philip asked, "or only afterwards in heaven? Because I think it's dull if so. I don't know anything about heaven." "As far as we can judge, looking at history," put in Mr. Morley, "there's no sign of it happening on earth now, is there?" "Why not?" asked Max fiercely. It seemed a terrible failure on the part of humanity. Why did people not do something about it? "Because people don't love each other perfectly. Which is what being perfect in humanity, put simply, could mean, I suppose," Mrs. Morley said. "As often as not, they hate each other, and therefore they fight." "But why does God let them hate each other?" demanded Max. And at once he blushed, thinking of how he had hated and fought Philip. "That," said his father, "is the deepest and most difficult mystery we ever have to face, and I don't know an answer to it. Mr. Housen will tell you it's because God gave us free will. Our will is not all good, we go wrong. And our will is not all good, we go wrong. Now listen, the other letter's very interesting. Shall I read it?" "Yes," chorused the family, for it was a relief to return to the soldiers from thinking about most difficult mysteries. "Sir," he read, "the supposition that the finding of the actual wooden soldiers, called the 12, loved by the Brontes, would add to our understanding of the famous family, is not so outrageous as your correspondent thinks. Let us quote what Charlotte Bronte says of them in her History of the Year 1829. I will sketch out the origins of our plays more explicitly if I can. First, young men, Papa brought Branwell some wooden soldiers at Leeds. Papa bought Branwell some wooden soldiers at Leeds. When Papa came home, it was at night, and we were in bed, so next morning Branwell came to our door with a box of soldiers. Emily and I jumped out of bed, and I snatched up one and exclaimed, 'This is the Duke of Wellington. This shall be the Duke.' When I had said this, Emily likewise took one up and said it should be hers, and when Anne came down, she said one should be hers. Mine was the prettiest of the whole, the tallest, and the most perfect in every part. Emily's was a grave-looking fellow, and we called him Gravy. Anne's was a queer little thing, much like herself, and we called him Waiting Boy. Branwell chose his and called him Bonaparte." Several things here are remarkable about the actual soldiers. First, Charlotte's is the perfect hero, prettiest and tallest. Is this not exactly what we should expect of the young Charlotte Bronte, the hero-worshipper, who was later to portray Mr. Rochester, the most rugged, mysterious, and perfect of romantic heroes, like no man that ever was? The Duke was Charlotte's first hero amongst the 12s, until she invented descendants of his who took his place. And note that Emily's was a grave fellow. May he not reflect Emily's own character, or what Charlotte and Branwell thought of it? We were told by Branwell in the History of the Young Men that Gravy's temper was still further soured by the sneers and laughter which the rest raised against him. Could his grave face have suggested to Branwell's mind the character of a melancholy, reserved, and over-serious Emily? Is it an outrageous suggestion? In Branwell's story, Emily's soldier had changed to Perry. Had Emily, in the course of their games, gone on strike against being connected with the melancholy Gravy? Perhaps she had. Note, too, that Anne's was much like herself, a queer little thing. As for Branwell, his first admiration was for Bonaparte. Bonaparte had straddled Europe like a giant, and to the small Branwell, already full of huge dreams, the very immensity of his evil success must be fascinating. Bonaparte, to the average English child, was a bogey. Branwell could not help admiring him. The name of the soldier in question was later changed to Sneaky, which may have reflected the general feeling about Napoleon. Or did it partly reflect himself? As a character, Branwell tells us Sneaky was ingenious, artful, deceitful, but courageous. Branwell must have known early how to use his wiles charmingly to get his own way. Branwell shows a streak of comic realism, at times twistedly satirical. In all these young writings, for my part, I should welcome the chance to make the actual acquaintance of the Duke, of Sneaky, Gravy, and Waiting Boy, probably the same soldiers Branwell calls Trot, and later to become Ross. And as to the Patriarch, Butter Crashy, who would not like to meet him, as it were in the flesh? Max listened, absorbed. All these soldiers were his friends. This man, toward whom he felt great warmth, understood and thought of them as real. How he wished he could show them to him. "And guess who it is? Mr. Hausen," said their father. "Of course it would be," said their mother. "The Bronte fan," said Philip, winking at Max. And that's the end of chapter 17.